First came the shocking resignation. Now, an even bigger bombshell. Hope Fellowship Church in Frisco has just revealed disturbing new details about their now former pastor, John McKenzie. The revelations? Multiple breaches of trust, years in the making. And yes, law enforcement has now been consulted. But here's the question on everyone's mind. How deep does this scandal go? And why did the church erase every one of McKenzie's sermons from their website? Stick with me, because this update takes the story to an entirely new level. Members of Hope Fellowship received another email this week, signed by Angela Linz and Aaron Alexander, who are now serving as co-interim lead pastors. The tone? Heavy, painful. But this time, there was a new detail that changes everything. The email said, "Hope Fellowship family, this has been a difficult and painful week for all of us. Walking through uncertain times can feel overwhelming, but we have found comfort in grieving together. And in the midst of our sorrow, we hold fast to this truth. God is faithful, and He is still good. We have experienced God's grace and love throughout this week, and we are thankful for your prayers. We know many of you have questions about what has happened and about the future for us as a church. As we have learned more information, we are prioritizing processing together as a congregation. So we want to share with you more details that may answer some important questions. On Sunday, John McKenzie confessed to our leadership team of sensual sin and moral failures. His confession was in response to the discovery of previously unknown secret behavior. John himself recognized that he was no longer qualified to serve as a spiritual leader of Hope Fellowship. We are walking alongside the McKenzie family as they are processing this new season of healing in their lives. And we are walking alongside the other affected parties we are aware of at this time. We have become aware that John was responsible for multiple breaches of our collective trust and his pastoral responsibilities over several years. However, we are unaware of any minors that were involved in these moral failures or any reports that have been made to law enforcement by any of the parties involved. Because we are committed to integrity, we have consulted with local authorities. And, should we learn of any reportable offenses, we will immediately report them to the proper agencies. You may be wondering why past sermons have been removed from our website. To some of you, this might feel like yet another loss. As a staff, we are not trying to erase history. Rather, we are intentionally taking time to center the needs of our staff and our congregation. And we know that these past sermons may be viewed differently, with the fullness of the information we have now. At the time they were preached, we learned key principles from Scripture through John's messages. But now, we would be viewing these teachings through the lens of current circumstances. Searching for signs of John's sin in the midst of past messages is not going to lead to our healing. We are choosing to lean into what helps our church heal now. This weekend, we will worship together, process what we have learned this week, and grieve together as a family. We invite you to join us in person or online. One thing is clear. While this has taken us by surprise, it did not catch God off guard. Our mission remains unchanged: to invite everyone to follow Jesus and to help them move closer to the center of God's purpose for their lives. That is who we are, and that is what we will continue to do, together. Although these have been heavy days, we have been overwhelmingly encouraged by the volunteers, staff, and church community. We will continue to serve, and we call you to join with us as we move forward. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 4:8-10, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body." You may feel pressed, perplexed, or struck down. But don't believe the lies of the enemy. God has not abandoned you. As Philippians 1:6 reminds us, "And I am certain that God, who began the good work within you, will continue His work." We grieve together, we hope together, and we trust God together. We love you dearly and look forward to being with you this weekend. With love, Angela Linz and Aaron Alexander, Executive Pastors/Co-Interim Lead Pastors. The letter admits that McKenzie's so-called moral failures weren't a single slip, but a pattern of behavior spanning years. Multiple breaches of trust, the kind that disqualify a pastor forever. Here's the exact line. We have become aware that John was responsible for multiple breaches of our collective trust and his pastoral responsibilities over several years. And while they assure members that no minors were involved, the church has admitted something equally stunning. They've consulted with law enforcement. That means the possibility of criminal behavior hasn't been ruled out. Think about that. One part of the letter caught members off guard. Every single sermon preached by McKinsey has been removed from the church's website. Now, the church insists they aren't trying to erase history. Instead, they argue that McKinsey's words, once viewed as spiritual guidance, would now be filtered through the lens of his sin. And in their words, searching for signs of John's sin in the midst of past messages is not going to lead to our healing. But let's be real. Many in the congregation feel like their spiritual history has been wiped clean. The man who baptized their children, married couples, and preached for decades is now digitally erased. And that raises the question, when a pastor falls, should their teaching be erased too? Or does that only deepen the wound? The biggest revelation in this update is law enforcement. The church says, because we are committed to integrity, we have consulted with local authorities. And should we learn of any reportable offenses, we will immediately report them to the proper agencies. Now, let's pause here. If they've already gone to law enforcement, it means there is at least a possibility of something criminal. While they've clarified they are unaware of any minors being involved, the phrase multiple breaches of trust leaves the door wide open to speculation. And in scandals like this, speculation spreads faster than the truth, which is why many members are pressing for transparency. Because when a shepherd falls this hard, people don't just want vague reassurances, they want answers. Inside Hope Fellowship, the fallout has been devastating. Members are grieving. Some are angry. Others are quietly questioning their faith. The letter acknowledges this pain, saying, "You may feel pressed, perplexed, or struck down. But don't believe the lies of the enemy. God has not abandoned you." And while the leadership is calling members to grieve together, worship together, and move forward, it's hard to ignore the irony. For years, McKinsey preached about faithfulness, accountability, and integrity, while secretly living in contradiction to his own message. And this brings us to the larger issue. Why does this keep happening? Why are so many megachurches, once seen as places of spiritual refuge, now making headlines for moral collapse? From Houston to Dallas, from Atlanta to New York, the pattern is hauntingly familiar. A charismatic leader builds a movement, thousands flock to the message, and then hidden sin unravels everything. And when it happens, it doesn't just destroy a pastor's reputation. It shakes the faith of entire families, sometimes for generations. So where does this leave Hope Fellowship? The co-interim pastors are urging members to rally together, to worship, and to continue the mission. But let's be honest, the scars from this will last for years. Now, I want to hear from you. Should churches always reveal the full truth when a pastor falls, even if it's painful? Or is protecting privacy more important? Do you agree with removing past sermons? Or do you think that's erasing history? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to follow this story as it develops, and others like it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because sadly, this may not be the last megachurch scandal we have to cover. But remember this: while pastors may fail, Christ never does. Hebrews 13:8 says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's the hope we cling to, even in the darkest scandals.